Are you tired of losing every ranked game because you just keep dying and dying? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you guys 7 huge tips to help you improve and become a better player all around. Also, before I get into the video, if you guys want to check me out on Twitch, there will be a link in the description and you can check me out on twitch.tv/itsvertex. I play with a lot of viewers and we just have a fun time. Now, without wasting too much time, the first tip I have for you guys is warming up. As simple as this sounds, there are many players who don't do this and they go straight into ranked games and they keep dying to stuff they usually won't die to because they're not warm. There are different ways you can warm up as a player. One of my ways to warm up is I like to go into the Raiders Mechanics V4 training map, and I like to practice my mechanics and my piece control on boss before I get into any real fights. One of the features I like about this map is that it has a peak practice section where you could practice your peaks and your peanut butter nuts on a moving target. It also allows you to fully customize the target to where you can change the size of it and the response time of it for your liking. One of the keys to becoming a better player is having good aim. It's important that you train your aim as a player, and the ways you can do this is you can use the built-in aim training in the Raiders map, or you can go into an aim duel map with one of your friends and you can do some of the 1v1s they have in there. When using these aim duel maps, it's always important that you focus on your crosshair placement and make sure that you're always keeping your crosshair on your enemy, even when you're not shooting. The aim duel map I like has many different 1v1s you could do, and it also has a lot of SMG and AR tracking when it comes to gliding, running, box fights, realistics, anything. The next tip I have for you is free building. Free building is one of the best ways to practice your mechanics and your edits and get faster overall. I recommend free building in a map that allows you to customize the speed of your player. When you free build in slower motion, you're able to actually think about the edits you're doing and take your time on them, and it'll help you be more consistent overall. Me personally, I like free building on 0.8x for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then when I switch back to normal speed, I feel faster and more consistent with my free builds. When free building in slow-mo, I recommend doing consistent edits such as double, triple edits, or quad edits, and getting used to those first. In this map, you could also spawn bots. That way you can practice your mechanics, your piece control, and your peaks on the bots. The third tip I have is to play an FFA Turtle Fights map. The map I personally like using is the Mardos Turtle Fights FFA because it's all around a good map for you to practice your aim, your mechanics, and your peaks. Whenever playing maps like these, it's important to actually take your time and analyze everything that you're doing, and when you make edits and peaks that are bad, it's important to be aware of those peaks and try not to make those same mistakes in the future. Maps like these are always fun to play with friends or even by yourself, just with randoms, and while getting a good amount of practice in at the same time. The fourth tip I have is to play Zone Wars. Zone Wars is a good game mode to play if you want to get better, because if you're good at Zone Wars, you're good at anything, because Zone Wars is an all-around game mode where you use everything. You use mechanics, you use aim, you use builds, and you use IQ. When it comes to Zone Wars, there's definitely a huge variety of maps and creative, but one I do recommend is Forever Zone Wars. I personally like this map and think it's good for practice because you're constantly respawning and there's a small zone that's constantly moving, so it helps you get your movement while rotating, while also fighting off a lot of people and using a different variety of guns. Again, when you're playing maps like these, it's important to really focus on what you're doing whenever you get into fights, and every time you die, try not to make the same mistakes you do when you fight other people. There's a lot of variety when it comes to Zone Wars because there's a lot of maps, so just play any Zone Wars, to be honest, any FFA or any 1v1 and 2v2 or 3v3 Zone Wars with friends or with randoms. Zone Wars is just a really good game mode to practice in and get better because you're utilizing all your mechanics and all your skills in one game mode. For tip number 5, I'm going to show you some piece control examples or different scenarios and what you want to do in these scenarios. If you're ever in a situation where you're boxed up and your opponent is trying to take your wall, most of the time you don't want to just sit and hold the wall. Most of the time, if your opponent's good enough and they end up taking the wall, it's easy for them to make a quick edit and get a shot off on you. There are a couple ways to counter this, and one of the first ones is to make sure you have an extra box of protection. If you notice your opponent is pressuring you, it's important to make an extra box for protection just in the case they do take your wall. you have an extra box to go into and play off that. Another way to counter an opponent pressuring your wall is to pre-fire. When you pre-fire your opponent and you hit a shot, a lot of the times they'll either back up or you can put pressure back on them and try to finish them off. In a situation where you're the one applying pressure on an opponent who's boxed up, instead of always going for the wall, you could try to place a ramp in their box. Majority of the time, they'll try to escape through the sides or the back, and you could try to predict them and get a shot off. In the situation you're applying pressure on a boxed up opponent, you can also go for pre-piece. You do this by getting on top of their box and blocking off all exits using cones. Then after you take their wall and they try to escape, all the exits are blocked off and you can get a free shot. If you're in the situation where you already have your opponent low, if you're spraying at them with an AR, it's best to have random pauses in your gunshots, because most of the time they'll let go of the wall for a split second and you can get more shots off. For tip number 6, and probably one of the most important ones, it is playing with confidence.
Confidence is key, period.
When it comes to winning your fights, it's very important to be confident in your own gameplay and your own skill to make sure that you're able to win the fights. For example, if you're ever in a situation where your opponent gets maybe a snipe or a good shot off and you're low, that doesn't mean the fight's technically over. It's not over until you're actually dead. With that being said, I'm brought to my last and final tip: to play the game. One of the best ways and easiest to improve is just by putting in the hours and actually playing the game. I also recommend playing people who are way better than you, or sweats. Playing sweats and people who are better than you will help you adapt to their playstyle, and you will also improve a lot. With all of that being said, if you guys apply these 7 tips to your gameplay and your playstyle, you will with no doubt see very quick improvement. If you guys enjoyed this video and found any of these tips actually useful to you, make sure to like the video and consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future videos. Let me know in the comments if this video helped you guys out, and also let me know if you have any other videos you guys would like to see me post on this channel. All my socials are linked in the description if you guys want to check me out on there. But for now, it's been Vertex, and I'm out. Peace.